Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started here, guys. Welcome everybody to our first HVAC Duct Manufacturers Alliance webinar. And this is a series that we're going to start putting on. We will have monthly webinars with different continuous improvement, lean, business management topics, all pertaining to the HVAC industry, and particularly to HVAC duct manufacturers like all of us are. So without further ado, let's jump into our first webinar. Can you all see my screen okay?
Yes.
Great. Okay, and let me know in the chat if you cannot. I know typical etiquette is to mute on webinars. There will be some times where we will unmute you guys because we want this webinar to be kind of a back and forth. So if Dale and I talk the entire time, we've definitely failed you. We want this to be interactive. We want your questions. We want your comments as we're going, and any insights or anything that you want to share. So our hope is that this will be an open forum. But before we get much further, we would like to introduce ourselves to you. So we are the HVAC Duct Manufacturers Alliance. And what we are is an organization of like-minded manufacturers who come together to get better, to share ideas, to learn about lean and continuous improvement, and to improve our businesses and improve our opportunities for our employees, improve the products for our customers, and so on. And so I am Graham Johnson. I'm the director and a chair of the DMA. And then we also have with us Dale Hedges, who is a chair as well and leads a couple of continuous improvement mastermind groups within the Duct Manufacturers Alliance. So Dale, hey. And we'll be walking you through our presentation today on identifying wastefulness in your duct shop. And so the whole idea here is that we want to introduce you to the idea that when we operate a business or a duct shop, sometimes there's some waste that occurs as we operate. And that waste takes many different forms. And the problem with waste is that it's not what our customers really come to us for. They come to us to buy ductwork, to buy curbs, you name it, to buy spiral duct. They're coming to us for those things. And it's our business to get those things to them, great quality, good price, as fast as possible. And we'd also like to make some money in the process. And so the problem is sometimes things prevent us from being as efficient as we can be. And we like to call those things waste. So today our goal is to introduce you to the idea of waste and how to identify it. Because what we find is when you can learn how to identify waste, the solution to reducing the amount of waste in your processes and getting more efficient starts to become apparent. So we're going to help you learn how to identify waste in 4 different forms in your duct shop today. So I'm going to pass this over to Dale, and Dale is going to start us off with a couple of questions. So Dale, take it away.
Thanks, Graham. So it's great to be here, and I'm excited to share this hour with you guys. And one of the first things that just comes to my mind is when we get a group of folks together is this question of, have you heard about this thing called lean manufacturing and continuous improvement? And if you have, I'd love to kind of hear from you what you have heard about. Maybe you even got a question or two about it. But just want to open it up and just see what the group has come to know as lean and continuous improvement. Anybody?
Oh, yeah, yep. So we know a lot about it. One of our core values at our company is continuous improvement. But, lean manufacturing is right what Graham's talking about is just, or a big part of it is waste. It all stems from like Toyota production system, Ford, and it's how do you efficiently make a product and make it as fast as you can with the best throughput and the best quality and make the most money. So really, yeah, great topic.
Yeah, and who's speaking? Sorry.
Oh yeah, sorry. It's this is Nick from CDI.
Hi, Nick.
With Jennifer. Yeah, with Jennifer.
Yeah, and so this is great because you guys obviously have embraced this whole concept and are using it as part of your everyday activity, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that's great.
We try to teach employees, leads, supervisors some of these concepts to help. Yep.
Awesome. Anybody else? Thank you. Thanks, Nick. Anybody else? All right. Well, so Nick, I'm going to jump back to you since you guys have kind of jumped into the lean journey. It's kind of my next question is, have you tried it? I would love to kind of hear a little backstory with you guys on what got you started, how long ago, and what has it been for you guys since starting?
Yeah, so we're not, so like the concepts and some of the ideas from lean manufacturing, we're really big on continuous improvement, but
Yeah.
we're not really big on just, like some companies, lean manufacturing is you have to do this and this and this, and you can read a book and it teaches you to do all these things. We just take little bits and pieces out of it and kind of roll it into our company. So we're not really a big lean manufacturing company, but the tools and the ideas from it we use regularly. So I mean, it's from we were a startup company, one small shop in Maple Grove, Minnesota. And then we've scaled tremendously over the past 15, 20 years. And so it's just embedded into our culture for continuous improvement, finding a better way, finding a machine that can automate something, working on accurate inventory, streamlining stuff. So like those are the bits that we take out of it.
Gotcha. Well, I love the attitude of making it fit to what you guys do. That's awesome. Just out of curiosity, has any other group besides the groups that are involved in the DMA, have any other groups been trying to get lean going in your shop?
I'll speak on behalf of SPIDA. I know we've had, through the years, not necessarily recently, but we've had different speakers to come in and talk. But so many times the speakers that we've had, they're not necessarily in our industry, or they're not doing the very same thing that we do. And as the other gentleman indicated, you can get a book and it'll tell you, but until you bring it home to your environment, it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
But
Thanks,
I think
Robin.
it's certainly something that the members of SPIDA need to be more involved in.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Robin, for pointing that out. And I think Nick, it also brings that out that there's a lot of resource out there. Google, YouTube, just libraries of books on continuous improvement and lean practices and stuff like that. But one of the things that we have really done, and this probably leads into our next slide, Graham, is we've really taken that philosophy of taking what we've learned and apply it to this specific industry. And that lean and continuous improvement can be applied to any industry, and the HVAC industry is no different. And so, one of the things that is really key, this cracking the code, is really about applying the specific tools to the needs that you have in your shop. And we don't go into big, deep detail and stuff like that. We want to make sure that it is just like lean is, a lean and efficient way of changing your culture and the way that leadership leads. And so that's what we focus on. And we have blended all sorts of resources, the lean manufacturing, the concept of Kaizen, the total Toyota production system. This crazy guy called Paul Akers. If you don't know Paul Akers, he wrote the book on 2-second lean, but and all you got to do is Google him, and he's on YouTube everywhere. But he has really leanified, I don't think that's a word, leanified lean and continuous improvement to this idea of 2-second lean, and we've incorporated that into what we do. And then just this common sense, right? We are not going to just apply something just because it's in a book. we're going to apply it because it makes sense to do that. And then the one thing that I think is unique with what we focus on is this power of us. And you can kind of look at our logo and you can see the us in Continue Us. And that is all about us coming together as teams and working together and collaborating together to build the best solution to eliminating this thing that we call waste. And so that's really the focus that we really want to work at when we go forward, because we really want to have duct manufacturers working with other duct manufacturers using and implementing lean and continuous improvement. So that is where we're at with how we approach this idea of lean and continuous improvement. And so I think it's a good time that we, first of all, let me just check in. Any questions, comments from the group? Just speak up if you got it. All right. So I think we can kind of move into identifying wastes. And for this, I just want to pass it back over to Graham and let him start up the conversation.
All right. Well, thank you, Dale. And hopefully you guys all have a little bit better idea of how we approach lean and continuous improvement. So like Dale said, there's 1,000,001 ways out there. Some of us, this is a brand new concept. For others, we've tried this, we've read books, maybe we've hired consultants, we've had initiatives, maybe they've failed. And what we want to help you do is keep it simple and practical and immediately applicable to what you're doing in your shop. So today we're going to talk about 4 wastes and how to identify them. And if you notice, this is part 1. Part 2 is next month. So we'll let you know when that is at the end of this meeting. But you gotta learn how to identify all 8 if you want to be completely effective. So we got a little gotcha there. But before we get into identifying particular wastes, let's talk about the real work of continuous improvement and what waste even is. So I love this right here. Continuous improvement in a nutshell is to learn to see waste and work daily to eliminate it. So we need to first learn how to identify waste, and then our task is getting rid of as much of it as possible in our processes in our shops. So if we want to be effective with this, if we want to be effective with getting rid of wastefulness, we have to learn how to identify, and then we have to learn how to improve our processes. And the cool thing about identification is when you learn how to identify a waste that's occurring, oftentimes the answer to getting that out of your process or improving your process, gaining efficiency, the answer to how you get there becomes very obvious because you have taken the time to identify and understand where the waste, where the inefficiency is coming from. So let's have a look at this. Before we can reduce waste, we have to understand what it is. We have to understand what it looks like. So I'm going to get this right out of the way here, because whenever I talk about waste, everyone thinks about this little guy right here. And that to a large extent is what we're talking about. We're going to get the poop out of our processes, right? We're going to get this little happy emoji out of there. And so our whole goal today is to help you develop lean eyes so that you can understand what wastefulness looks like in your processes. So we're going to give you a new pair of corrective lenses so that you see your work a little bit differently and learn how to identify waste. So let's give waste a definition here. Waste is any process that consumes more resources than needed, okay? So whether that be time, whether that be money, personnel, labor, space in your shop, whatever it may be, it consumes more resources than what's really needed to get the job done. So the Japanese word for waste is, they have a few words for waste, but the Japanese word for waste is muda. And the literal definition of the word muda is uselessness. So when you see the word waste, or when you think about inefficiency, I want you thinking it's useless to the customer. It's useless to our process. And so what things do we do that don't provide a lot of value to the company or to the customer? And when you really learn about waste and you learn how to identify this, you come to understand that there's a lot of things that we do every day in our operations that don't really serve the customer because they're not as efficient as they could be. They don't help our bottom line because they're tying up huge amounts of labor and resources. So I want you to be hyper aware of uselessness in your shop so that you can learn how to attack it and get rid of it and be as useful as possible. So waste is any process that consumes more resources than needed. Waste can also be any process which does not add value to the customer. So we all exist to add as much value as possible to our customers, right? And so anything that we do that takes away value from them, whether it be a longer lead time or a non-competitive price or a subpar product, doesn't add value. It doesn't make them want to run back to you and order again. And so if we can get better, if we can get more efficient and reduce the waste, we will have customers knocking down our door trying to get more duct from us. And that's what we want. So waste is any process that prevents that from happening. And then finally, waste is anything that gets in the way of our work. So if you find yourself reaching for tools, walking across the shop for a cart, searching for products that you know are on a shelf somewhere, those things all get in the way of you operating efficiently. So those are all waste. A few other ways that waste shows up are unevenness, when our business has ups and downs, or when one department's slammed and the other department's dead. And then another way is overburden, when too much is asked of an individual or a machine or a department. So those are places where you're going to see waste show up. And there are 8 different categories of waste that we can identify. So we call them the 8 wastes, or sometimes the 8 deadly wastes, kind of like the 8 deadly sins. So there's 8 wastes that we can identify, and I'll give them all to you briefly right now. So first we have the waste of transportation, which is moving things around, moving product around. Second, we have the waste of inventory. And this is not having enough product on hand, or having too much product on hand, or not knowing where your product is. Inventory waste can come in a lot of different ways. Third, we have the waste of motion. That's people moving around, moving your body, reaching for things. Fourth is waiting. So customers waiting, departments waiting, parts waiting for the next part of the process. There's a lot of waste in waiting around. Fifth is overproduction. When we produce or buy too much, and then we have to fight against that. We have to move it around. We have to inventory it. We have to move personnel. It really drives a lot of other wastes. So overproduction is a waste. Overprocessing is a waste, where we're doing too many steps to get the job done, or when we have redundant steps and processes. Sixth is defects, which is plain and simple. It's just mistakes. It's dents and scratches. It's remakes. It's things like that. And then finally, and it gets the fanciest animation of them all, is unused potential, because it is the most deadly of all 8 sins. When you have a warehouse full of people who are fighting against all these wastes, you are not realizing the potential of your organization or of the individuals in it. So that is a waste as well. So those are the 8 wastes in a nutshell. And today we're going to be going over these 4. We're going to be going over transportation, inventory, waiting, and overprocessing. So like I said, you're going to have to come back next month for the other 4. You definitely do not want to miss unused potential. But I'm going to pass it back to Dale, and Dale is going to walk us through our first waste. Take it away.
Yeah, thanks. And so the first one we have there is transportation. And, we're really focused on this operative word called unnecessary or useless transportation of products or movement of products and materials. Because obviously we got to deliver our products to our customers, right? But that's a value that we can deliver our products to our customer work site. But when we start looking internally, there are a lot of things that we do that can be unnecessary when it comes to moving product and materials and things. And so you can kind of see some of the examples here. We have to move pallets all the time, but and we've got carts that we push around. But the real issue is how far are we traveling with that stuff? When we're walking, a packet of paper for a job out to the shop every 5 minutes, going back and forth, you might have a unnecessary movement there. The crane, using forklifts, using hand trucks, all of these are opportunities where we can reduce that amount and maybe even eliminate that amount of transportation. And that obviously provides a lot more ability to service our customers with timely deliveries and things like that. So if you're muted, you can unmute yourself because I want to show a video, and I'd love to just kind of have you guys shout out. This is an example of transportation. Would love for you to kind of look at it from the standpoint of putting on your lean glasses and tell us what you see as a waste of transportation. So hit it. So we got somebody making collars here, or not collars, but dampers.
Anybody seeing a waste of transportation? Yeah, go
So
ahead.
what do you guys think? Yeah.
Looks like the only value is when he was actually making the product and the whole video is transportation.
Very good.
Right. Yeah.
So what do we see this gentleman doing here?
Well, so I'll just kind of jump in here for time's sake. You know, we've got a situation where somebody is stacking these dampers and then they're rolling them to a staging area. But if they're doing hundreds of these in a day, he's doing that 10, 20 times a day, right? And that transportation there is a waste. And so I'm curious if you guys were to help this operator be more efficient at transporting these dampers, what would you recommend we do?
Either needs to put them on a belt or in a cart to where it would hold more than 5 at a time with rollers on it, or
yeah, and that transfer belt of some type where he just puts it there and it transports itself
to the next area.
Yeah, to the next area. Exactly, Robin. And or putting them on carts. You know, those are really great ways of reducing the transportation. Can't eliminate it, but you can definitely reduce it, right? So thank you for that. Yeah, so that's transportation. And the next thing we're going to talk about is Graham.
Inventory. I just want to say, Robin, I think you're right on the money about a cart too, because if you look at this, what are those sleeves doing? Where's he moving them to?
Exactly. I was going to ask, you can't see much in the video, but that doesn't really look like a staging area. That looks like an aisle that's probably going to hold up something else.
Exactly. And it's certainly
Very
not
good.
certainly not the final resting place of these parts. So it could go on a pallet, it could go on a cart, it could go directly onto the truck, any number of things. But right sitting on the floor is not the best place. So that means you're going to have to touch it again, which is going to play into another waste that we'll talk about a little later. But great call outs there, guys. And please do unmute yourselves and call out, ask questions as we go. So let's look at the next one here. Oh, watch them again. All right, let's look at the next waste here, which is the waste of inventory. And like I said previously, this is all about having incorrect amounts of product and materials on hand. So sometimes that means too much. Sometimes that means not enough. Sometimes that means having no clue where it is. And I know that's never happened to anybody here, but I'll give you an example of myself. So I used to work with a lot of printer paper back in one of my office jobs that I had. And it's a classic example of you go to the printer and it's out of paper and you go look for the paper and there's none there. So you get in your car and you hurry over to Staples and you say, I will never run out of paper again. I'm going to buy 2 boxes instead of the one that I had on the shelf, right? Anyone else done this or just me? So you go and buy the 2 boxes of paper, you drive back to the office, you print your stuff, and you proceed to forget about it for the next 3 months until what happens? You run out of paper again, right? And you say, I bought twice as much, I can't believe I'm already through it. Well, the problem was you completely forgot about it because you weren't managing your inventory properly. You were just fixing it by throwing a ton of inventory at the problem, and you created a massive waste of inventory that affected you in a lot of different ways. So inventory can rear its head in a lot of ways. But in our duct shops, it's also difficult because we have to produce things for the customers when they need it. And so we really have to get a good read. But I challenge you guys to think about how good of a grasp you have on your inventory and how many times you're scrambling to make more, or you're throwing away extra that you made previously, because those are all wastes of incorrect inventory. So I want you to look at this picture right here. This is a picture that was taken in one of our DMA member organizations. This is their turning vane assembly station. They're creating turning vanes to put into rectangular elbows. And there's a lot of different sizes here. So as you look at this picture, what do you notice about inventory?
I can't tell if I have enough or too much.
Yeah, great. Can't tell if you have enough or too much. So if we look over here at this one, do you think they have enough or too much, or what?
I'm not sure.
Not sure,
Tough
right?
to tell. Do they go? How many do they go through in a day? I mean, if that's an hour's worth of work for them, then no, it's probably fine. But and I think that's what you're probably leaning towards, is deciding what's the right amount to have without having too much. So they kind of have to know, how many do you go through in an hour, how many do you go through in a day or a week, and what's the lead time on those parts?
Exactly. Great. And who's speaking?
Oh, that was Jen, sorry.
Jen, great. Thank you, Jen. Right on the money. Yeah. So not knowing, like, you look at this and you say, is that the right amount? I have no idea. And then maybe you look at this cubby down here towards the bottom and it's super dusty, right? And so do we even need to inventory that part, or can we make them as ordered? Can we make them just in time? And then some of these half-filled bins, are we going to run out in 5 minutes, or are we going to run out in 5 months? So not knowing what you need and then having equal space for each size. So you can see some of these cubbies are completely stuffed. Maybe it needs 2 cubbies, right? Whereas some of them are empty. Maybe you only need half a cubby. So could you cut your workstation in half and have more floor space? So there's situations like this where waste is going to crop up all over the place. So with the waste of inventory, get a good read on what you have and what you need. Do you have enough? Do you have too much? Do you have not enough? If you don't know, you are creating waste. So I'll pass it back to Dale for the next one. Take it away, Dale.
Sorry, I had my microphone on mute. So the next one is waiting. And this is all about the wasted time of not doing something. So there are many causes for us to have to wait, but it really bottoms out on unevenness, where the process, whatever the process is, one area may be a bottleneck and causing people to wait, or departments, or even our customers to wait down at the end of the line. So you have this one area might be really busy, and another area just nothing's going on because they're waiting. And so you can have a machine breakdown. I don't know if anybody has that problem, but you may have a machine breakdown, and now the shop is waiting for the plasma table to get repaired, right? The whole shop is down because we're waiting for that. So there are many things that can cause the waiting, but whenever somebody has to wait, that is just a huge, huge waste. And of course, I can't stress enough, if our customers are waiting for their products, that is just a detrimental waste for the company. So this is really a critical thing. So we've got another video here I want to show, and I'm just going to show it, and then I just want to hear from you guys what your perspective is on what the video, and then we'll kind of give some backstory to it. But here's the video. And it's in slow motion. at least on my camera or my screen. All right. So first of all, what do you guys see? What's your first impression of seeing this video? I'm sure you guys have a thought.
Maybe the lack of organization.
Okay. I don't see anybody working on this stuff. But it's there, right? So what we are seeing is what happens when a group, a department goes on to break, right? And so in that particular case, when this group goes to break, who's waiting for this product? Any ideas? Who would be waiting for this?
Either the customers or the next station, wherever it's going next, the freight company.
Yeah, Nick, I think you hit it on the head. There's multiple groups, interested parties waiting for this, right? The very next step after assembly, you've got probably a truck backed up to the dock, right? Waiting for this stuff. And of course, you've got a customer who needs this stuff and they're waiting for it. And so this can be a very detrimental waste unless we are aware of it and really working to reduce it. Just one last question. What do you think would be a great way of resolving this particular issue with the group going off to break and leaving this product unattended to?
Stagger your breaks. So this area gets cleaned up, and while the other group wherever it's going to next, while they're at break, when they come back from break, this is all there.
Yeah,
and you go on break after it's cleaned up.
I like that idea that you stagger the breaks so that no matter what time of the day is or what time of the shift is, this product is being worked on. You still honor your team members by giving them breaks and lunch and all of that, but you're also honoring your customer by keeping the process flow moving by staggering those breaks. So that's a really great idea. I appreciate that. All right, let's jump to the next waste, which is overprocessing. So Graham.
All right, and I will transition into overprocessing by saying one more thing about the waste of waiting is, I don't know about you guys, but anytime I get interrupted mid-process, mid-email, mid-whatever it may be, and I get interrupted, I make a lot of mistakes after those situations, right? I have to come back to what I was doing. I forget where I was, what steps I'd already done, and now I have to get my head back into the game. And so what you'll find is in situations where waiting occurs, a lot of mistakes can happen, and that can cause what is our last waste we're going to talk about today, which is overprocessing. And many people have said that overprocessing is a driver of all the other wastes. When we're doing more than what we need to do to complete a process, we're driving all the other wastes. So if I get interrupted mid-process, I have to go back a few steps. Now I'm overprocessing. If I don't know how much inventory I have to go back and count and optimize the levels and reorder, or like my paper example, I have to run to the store and grab more something. That's all over processing. I'm doing more than what I need to do or should need to do to get the job done. If I am transporting things around and I'm pushing a stack of parts over to a staging area when it should go on a cart or in a truck or on a pallet, that means I'm going to have to pick them up and put them on something. Again, it's adding another step. And so overprocessing is really a come along waste with just about everything else that we identify as waste, because it's doing more than what you need to do to get the job done. And so adding steps, making things more complicated, repeating actions. If you're picking up a tool, putting it down, picking it up, putting it down, picking it up, putting it down. If you're on and off a forklift all day long, if you're walking back and forth between offices all day long, those are all over processing steps. And so the question that we want to ask is, how can I do this with less steps? And that's kind of a counterintuitive thing to think about. We'll talk about that in just a second. Here's a couple other ways that overprocessing shows up. Overburdening a process. So if everything has to go through one person to get out to the shop or for an order to get processed, that person gets overburdened, they start scrambling, they're stressed out, and you have a lot of overprocessing waste within those reactions. And then finally, non-value added activity. We spend so much time doing things that the customer's not paying us for. The customer's paying us for ductwork, right? The customer's paying us for curbs. They're paying us for spiral. If we're not actively working on delivering that, we are over-processing, right? And so many things that we do are over-processing. And so here's the interesting and counterintuitive thing about continuous improvement and lean, is that lean is all about the art of subtraction. And this is kind of the opposite of how we're programmed. At least in the United States or in North America, we're kind of programmed differently to say, when something breaks down, when something goes wrong, what can we put in place to make sure that never happens again? Right? That's kind of that's the knee-jerk reaction is, okay, I ran out of paper, I'm gonna go buy twice as much. Guess what? You're just gonna run out of paper again twice as far down the line. So we haven't really fixed it. We've actually complicated it and generated more waste. And so lean is a little bit counterintuitive in that we say, what can we remove from the process so that the opportunity to make mistakes and generate waste is reduced? If we're touching a product less, there's less chances that we're going to dent it. There's less chances that someone's going to get hurt. There's less chances for something to go wrong and generate waste. And so we always want to think when something goes wrong, don't say, what can we put in place to make sure this never happens again? What I want you to say is, what can we remove from this process so that this never has a chance to happen, right? And so it's a subtle shift. But that is what continuous improvement is all about, and eliminating the waste of overprocessing is all about, is saying, how can we simplify our process so that there's no way for waste to occur? There's no spot for mold to grow, right? There's nowhere that this can break down, and we will reduce the amount of defects and mistakes that happen and reduce the amount of waste in our process by thinking that way. So if you leave today with anything, I want you to go and approach your problems with the mindset of, how can I simplify this so that that problem doesn't even happen? That is what continuous improvement is in a nutshell, is simplifying processes so that waste does not have a chance to grow. So
Graham,
yeah.
Graham, let me just jump in real quick on this, because I just think it's so important, but also something that I can relive over and over again. One of the companies I used to work at was a computer company, and it was almost unbearable on how much new stuff was added to processes because the engineers were involved. And no dig on engineers, but it was always like, hey, we need to add this to the process, so, right? And so now you've got all these moving parts and complications and stuff like that. And when we started pulling that stuff out of the process and started simplifying it and just literally asking those who were doing the work what worked best for them. Another thing that engineers, at least at this company, didn't do, was ask the people who were doing the work. By pulling all that stuff out, the process actually moved twice as fast. So yeah, I think this is probably the critical thing that a lot of people just don't understand. So yeah, good stuff.
Excellent. Thank you, Dale. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to you, Dale, because those are our 4 wastes. And so we want to hear from you now. What questions do you have? For some of you, this will be old knowledge. For some of you, this is brand new and revolutionary. And so Dale, go ahead, take it away.
Yeah, so just want to hear from you guys now that you've got the first 4. Maybe you've got some questions about all 8, or maybe something we talked about in regards to lean or continuous improvement. Feel free to ask a question. No question is a bad question. All questions are our journey of growth and learning. So fire away. Give us your best question.
And if we don't hear from you, we're going to start calling on you.
Yeah, so for people that maybe haven't seen lean very much, what's a good first step? You know, what's like something they could take away today and help them get going with it?
That's a great question. And we're actually going to help you with that first step. But the first step would be just spend time out in the area, the shop floor, and with your newfound lean glasses, start looking for hints of waste. And pretty soon you'll start seeing gigantic mountains of waste, especially if you've never done it before. But like I said, we've got, when we get done here, we'll give you an opportunity to do some of that as homework coming up. But that would be my first step. Graham, what would be your thought?
Yeah, I would say that most improvements start with asking good questions, and you can't ask a good question without understanding what it is you're looking at. And so our goal for today was to give you a little bit of understanding or a little bit of knowledge, but the way that you will turn that knowledge into understanding is by spending time out in the shop or in your office, engaged in the process of identifying those wastes. And then when you do that, when you see over processing and you say, man, why is he walking back and forth 16 times when he could just do that in 2 trips? That is when we want you to ask those questions and then take the next step to try something. That can take so many forms, but like Dale said, we're going to give you some homework, but really we're focused on identification, and identification leads to good questions, which leads to new ideas and good solutions. So
Bob Bremelo, I see your hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment, Bob here from OmniDuct. We've been on this journey for quite a while, and I think one of the most important first steps for us was to recognize that we thought we were good, but when we came to the realization that none of us are as smart as all of us, it revolutionized the way we think about things. And when we humbled ourselves and said, we can learn from other people, and together we can get better, then our journey just accelerated so rapidly. So just wanted to add that.
Awesome. Yeah, well, thank you, Bob. That's awesome insight. And that is something that most companies struggle with is, why do I need to improve? I'm doing great, right? I'm making money, right? But in reality, we all can get better just a little bit every day, right? So thank you, Bob.
One of the things that we struggle with at CDI is we're really, really good at identifying issues, but we struggle with sustainability, especially when we get busy. We have a cyclical business that over the summer months or over about 4 months out of the year, 4 to 5 months out of the year, over 60% of our revenue is produced. So we do a lot of our continuous improvement ideas through the off season a little bit more when we're slower, and then we implement those things before our busy months, and we start out really strong, and then about halfway through we kind of lose it and we struggle with sustainability. What are your thoughts on that?
It's normal. I can tell you from experience with multiple companies that sustainability really does become a challenge. And there's several ways that you can address it, but I would just say that it's bottom line, it's all about the leadership team. And there's standard operating procedures that you can establish, but then the leadership needs to make sure that those standard operating procedures are maintained and sustained as well and followed and that type of a thing. So using tools like a standard operating procedure, being able to use tools like that is one thing, but then it's really up to the leadership to make sure that there's a system in place that keeps those standard operating procedures relevant and being followed. The other thing about the standard operating procedure is that becomes your benchmark, if you will, for the operation. So you can easily, if you know what the SOP is, you'll know whether or not you're on it with the procedure or not on it with the procedure, because it's out of sync with the SOP. And so then obviously, if you're making improvements to the process, the SOP becomes your checkpoint to see how well you're making improvements too. So, so those are some of the tools, but I would say that it's really, really focused on the ability of the leadership team being able to maintain a focus on the proper processes and stuff like that. So,
Yeah,
does that help, Jen?
Yes, thank you.
So I have a curiosity question for you guys at CDI. Are you guys implementing standard operating procedures, or is it more of tribal knowledge? What's the process right now for you guys?
No, and we do have SOPs for sure, and we, because we're a growing company, like Nick had mentioned early on, we started out just one shop in Maple Grove, and now we have 5 facilities throughout the country, and so we're a growing company, so we continue to update those processes, and sometimes we do have some legacy employees, and so I think there's a little bit, that's why we backslide a little bit and struggle with sustainability, but the other piece of it is, I think, you know, if you go back to that kind of messier work area, that we looked at that video, they get busy and they just kind of fall off a little bit. So Nick, would you agree that's, you know, the bulk of what happens?
Yeah, we're not driven 100% off of like a standard operating procedure or standard work or anything like that. We have things in place to drive, you know, prints and procedures and stuff, but yeah, that's where there's potential for opportunity there.
Continuous improvement, baby. Yeah, and you know, going from one shop to 5 shops, that adds another level of challenge for leadership, right? Because now you can't physically be there to spread the news of lean and continuous improvement. So that adds a layer of challenge for you guys. And again, that's where the standard operating procedures can really help in that regard as well. So, yeah. Well, the fact that you guys are on this journey already is you're in some cases light years ahead of some other shops. So, yeah.
Mark Adair is raising his hand.
Oh, okay. I didn't see your hand, Mark.
I'm hiding. This is Mark Adair. I'm from OmniDuct. You know that we were exposed, or I was exposed in other companies to lean and continuous improvement, and but the whole concept has changed OmniDuct and understanding. And one of our mentors made a comment that really kind of rocked our world. Was that he made a comment that 85% of everything that's done at his factory is waste. I'll pause on a second for that. 80 to 85% of everything that they did in building product was waste. That only like 15% truly added value to the product.
Yeah.
And his point was that the lean and continuous process improvement is an unending. And OmniDuct now truly embraces the fact that this never, ever stops. And another thing that he did is that every employee, I think, was, and I may have this wrong, but it's not far off, they didn't have individual titles. They were all called process engineers, I think it was. So everybody's job on the floor, everybody's job was to improve the process, not build the product. So their minds were always looking and having the glasses of eliminating waste, and it was never stopping. And so to be able to convert an employee to give them those type of eyes, where they really are looking and noticing this is revolutionary, where they are empowered to be able to see waste and make improvements to their own individual processes, has just absolutely revolutionized our business. And we look at this as that we haven't even scratched the surface. It has changed our business immensely, but there's so much more to go. And then the last point about sustainability, the way that we found great success in actually sustaining is accountability. the accountability within our organization, within our different divisions, the actual competition that it has, and showing how another division has come up with new ideas and implement, and then one stacks on top of the other on top of the other, and that improvement just makes the next improvement. And that what the first division did, they see it, and then the next division takes that and adds on top of it. So that accountability is huge in driving this process.
Yeah, a great insight, Mark. I'm gonna guess the mentor that you were talking about was this guy that wrote the 2-Second Lean book.
I wasn't going to say that, but you're accurate in your your assessment.
And
Yeah, I think. Go ahead, Grant.
I will say that that gentleman is taking those numbers from Toyota, who believes that even more of the percentage of what they're doing is waste. So if
Think about that.
If you have
Toyota is the grandfather, if you will, grandparents of lean and continuous improvement, and they're still saying that.
Mhm. And they've done it for decades.
Decades. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Well,
anyway,
I could
great question.
talk forever on this, but we need to move on. Thank you, everybody, for your input. I appreciate the questions. I appreciate the comments. And I want to pass it back over to Graham for our homework.
All right. And please do keep the questions coming. Our hope is that this is the ongoing thing for you guys as you are testing out the idea of continuous improvement in your shop, or maybe you've taken the plunge and you're looking to go deeper. As you continue to come up with questions based on what we've talked about today, please do reach out. And you will all be receiving an email, if you haven't already, with our contact information and with some homework for today. So I'll just go over this real quickly. Boy, doesn't everyone just love homework? But this one's actually gonna be fun. So I'll sell this a little bit. We are sending you, and most of you should have already received this, a waste scavenger hunt. We have the 8 waste one posted here. You guys will receive a 4 waste scavenger hunt with the 4 waste that we talked about today. And the goal is for you to practice identifying the 4 wastes that you learned today. So go out there with a sheet of paper, go out into your shop, go into your office, wherever it may be. Don't go into your wife's closet, that's death. But go out into the shop and start marking out where you're seeing the waste of transportation, where you're seeing the waste of waiting, and identify waste as it occurs in your shop. And then we'll give you an opportunity to send those back to us and receive some feedback, or get some more insights, or share some of your learning. So a couple pointers when you do this exercise, please let the people in your shop know that you are doing an exercise, so that they don't freak out when they see you out there with a pen and paper watching them. Secondly, we want to make sure that we are focused on the process. So I don't want John over there to feel singled out because, oh, John's doing this waste and John's doing that waste and John did this wrong. That's not what we're going for. We're saying, look at the process, because all of us as leaders, we have given our people a process. So if they're not successful, it's our fault for giving them a bad process. So look at the process, learn to identify the waste, not solve the problem, just identify the waste, and then send those back to us and we'll give you some feedback and some further thoughts. Any questions on the homework? It's all on you. I highly recommend you do it though. This is a really fun exercise. For some people, it'll go like that. For some people, they'll go out into their shop and be completely overwhelmed with the amount of waste that they now see with their new lenses. So yeah. Highly recommend you guys do that. Okay. All right, guys. And it wouldn't be a webinar without a little pitch. So buckle up. Here we go. I want to tell you a little bit about the Duct Manufacturers Alliance. We call it the DMA, the HVACDMA. But we are an organization of people who come together to get better together. And what we realize is that many duct manufacturers don't get the results they're looking for. And so we wanted to provide an opportunity and an outlet for duct manufacturers to come together, to mastermind, to get one-on-one coaching with experts, and to get really practical and applicable knowledge that they could use to improve their businesses, engage their employees, and reduce their costs, increase profitability. And it's been an incredible run. We've been in operation for a couple of years. We have decades of lean and continuous improvement experience on the leadership team of the HVACDMA. And the cool thing about this model is that everybody wins. The customers get better products and shorter lead times. The company gets a stronger bottom line and greater profitability. And then it allows for growth of the organization and also for the people that are in it. It creates a better opportunity, more security, better pay, and more meaning for the people in the organization. And so it gives people a chance to be a part of something great. And like Mark there commented a couple minutes ago, it gives you really great accountability to just say, you know what, you're not in this on your own. You're in this with a group of people who have your back and are going to support you and also egg you on a little bit, keep you accountable to your goals and help you move forward. And so we have found we've got a number of organizations that have partnered with us who are revolutionizing their duct manufacturing with continuous improvement. If that's something that's of interest to you, we'd love to start a conversation with you and talk about that a little bit more. And another opportunity to do just that will be on March 25th, Thursday, same bat time, same bat channel. We are going to do part 2 of our webinar, Identifying Wastefulness, part 2, where we're going to go over the last 4. And I'm just going to give you a little preview. There's some heavy hitters in there. So if this was at all interesting to you guys today, you do not want to miss us talking about unused human potential or the waste of motion or overproduction and different things like that. So please do put this in your calendar. You all will receive an invite for this webinar next week. So please be sure to register for that if that's of interest to you. And that is it. So thank you so much for spending your lunch hour with us. We certainly appreciate you guys making the time. I hope this has been of value for you. It's been great to get to know you all a little bit better, and we'd like to keep this conversation going. So starts with that homework. Make some time to do that today. Reach out if you have any further questions. And Dale, any final words?
I would just echo a little bit. Feel free to contact Graham and I. We'd love to have a conversation about what you're discovering with your scavenger hunt, and then let's just talk about what we can do for the webinar next month. Maybe we can talk about some of the stuff that you learned while doing your homework. So please reach out to us. We'd love to have a conversation with you.
All right. Thank you all for coming. Best of luck in your endeavors. Have a great week and be lean, and we'll talk to you all soon. Thanks for coming, guys.